there will be video recording, so then you will have the link to this video on YouTube or somewhere. So ladies, it's nice to see you here. Thanks God it's Friday, but for teachers, as you know, we rarely have weekends, we rarely have days off, yes? And right now you are supposed to see my screen, yes?
Yep, we do.
Okay, that's great. And what do you see now on the screen?
Green screen.
Questions?
Yes,
Question marks.
yes, you can see question marks. Because this is the topic of our today's webinar. So what are we going to discuss? Actually, not discuss, but more listen.
CCQs.
Yes, yes. So we are talking about CCQs, but first of all, we need to remember that any questions that teacher asks students, this is the basic tool for generating interest, for provoking thoughts, for encouraging students to speak. So what we ask and how we ask is really important, especially if we talk about CCQs. So just a quick reminder that CCQ is a question that we ask students to make sure that they have understood the target language or the grammar structure. But today, mostly we will focus on vocabulary and functional language. So when we teach vocabulary, yes, we have clear context, everything is done in presentation, yes, everything goes well. Then you try to explain, you try to clarify what this or that word means. And after that, you have to check students' understanding. And in this case, your task is to ask CCQs, yes? First of all, before asking CCQs, you can already listen to your students and you can already understand how they use this or that target language. Sometimes it happens that students have almost no problems or just a few problems, but anyway, it's important to ask CCQs and how it can be. So the easiest question that comes to mind, what does, for example, manage mean? You all seem to understand sensible, or do you all understand relative? So these are questions that from time to time we can hear from our colleagues, from teachers, but are these questions appropriate or not?
Not exactly.
And what's the reason?
Because not all students will admit that they don't understand. They will be shy enough.
And generally, from the psychological point of view, is it polite, is it correct to ask, do you understand? Because somehow it undermines people's cognitive abilities and so on. So unfortunately, these questions are not efficient. They do not work. And why they do not work? Because only one or two students can understand correctly and completely. And only one or two students thinks that he or she completely understands, but in fact, they don't understand completely. And they can understand only some part of the vocabulary or functional language that you presented, but you don't know which part they can understand. And they can understand only something that was mentioned the last, only something that you said in the last sentence, and so on. And as you already mentioned, learners can say, yes, I understand, yes, everything is clear, just because they don't want to be offended. They don't want to admit that they have some kind of lack of understanding, or maybe because they are bored after presentation, or maybe because they already want to practice something. That's why they will say, yes, I do, yes, I understand. So what should we do? How to plan, how to work with CCQs. Now I'm talking about vocabulary. First of all, in this part of vocabulary that you are presenting, you should be 100% certain about the meaning. And this meaning of the phrase, of the word, you should turn into a closed question with a short or easy answer. So let's look at the example. He managed to sleep. And your task is to check if students understand the phrase managed to. Yes, so first you identify the meaning. It means that he tried to do something, it wasn't easy, but he succeeded. And then this meaning you can turn into simple closed questions. Did he try to do something? Yes. Was it easy? No. Did he succeed? Yes. So in this way, you can imply the meaning, and you can prepare correct and quite effective CCQs. And right now, let's move to helpful hints, some helpful hints about CCQs. First of all, make sure that you are checking the meaning of the word or phrase. For example, you have the word wardrobe, and you need to check if your elementary or pre-intermediate students understand this word. And if you have this kind of question, is it made of wood? Is there one at your home? Are these questions suitable here?
Not really, because table is also made of wood. I have a table at home.
Yes. And it's better to focus on the meaning. And here you can ask, do you put food or clothes in it? Which room is it in? You can also show a picture, and you can ask, is it a wardrobe? And then students will definitely say, yes, it is. Okay, the next hint. Just one comment. If I'm moving too fast, you can slow me down.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. The next hint. Make sure that you are specific about the meaning. So you need to check the deep sense of the word, not just something general. For example, you have a sentence, he wondered about the town, and you need to check this verb, wonder. If you ask, did he wonder about, that's not specific. This is just yes, no, did he do this action or not? But we need to check the exact meaning of this word. Did he walk? Did he walk fast? Did he have somewhere special to go? And so on. So specific. The first was, which was the first? Check the meaning and be specific about the meaning. And helpful hint number 3, don't use target language in the question. Why? Because this is something that students are learning, they are trying to perceive. And if you use it already in the question, they will be even more confused. For example, from yesterday's lesson, I take after my mom in appearance. It's intermediate level. So I need to check phrasal verb take after. If I ask, who do I take after? Do I check this?
No.
No, but I use the target language, and the focus is not on the phrasal verb, and the focus is on completely different thing. And it's better to ask something like, do we have something in common? Do I look similar to my mom? That would be without target language, but you will check the meaning. And a reminder about good CCQs. So what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Good CCQs should be short and simply expressed. Don't go into long and complicated questions with lots of examples and so on. They should be easy to answer in 1 or 2 words. It can be yes, no, or it can be like, it's an action, or yes, it's a positive adjective, or something like that. And good CCQs should not contain more difficult vocabulary or structures than those that you are trying to check. If you have, for example, with pre-intermediate or elementary level adjectives about personality or appearance, so it's not a good idea to use difficult grammar like present perfect continuous or something else. And also it's not a good idea to use other vocabulary that can be difficult for them. And again, good CCQs, they shouldn't contain the target language pattern, but they may include the target word, especially if you demonstrate it. It works well with lower levels. If, for example, you have the topic parts of speech, yes, and parts of body, sorry. And you need to check if students understand what thumb is. So this is finger, and you can demonstrate it. You can use thumb, this word, but you will demonstrate and it will be not so difficult. And what about the structure of CCQs? They can be, of course, of different types. It can be yes/no questions. So here I have like examples about one word, about dormitory. Yes/no question or 50-50 chance questions. Is it a room or a building? Is it cheap or expensive? It can be information questions. Who lives in it or how many people live in it? It can be discrimination question. For example, do you sleep in it? Can you cook a meal in it? Is it the same as a flat? And so on. It can be shared experience questions. It can be something like, is there a dormitory in the neighborhood? And life experience or culture questions. Have you ever lived in a dormitory, or are there dormitories in your hometown? And I need to move it. Sorry. If your students answers, sometimes it depends, I don't know. In most cases, these answers mean the same as no. So if your students answer to the question, for example, have you ever lived in a dormitory? They can say yes. You need one more question to make sure that they really understand what dormitory is. So in this case, you can ask discrimination question, or you can ask information question, who lives in a dormitory, so that they understand what place it is. And while speaking about CCQs, yes, what else should we remember? We should remember about one formula. Can you tell anything about this formula?
Meaning, pronunciation, form.
Yes, so meaning, pronunciation, form. It used to be also, or it still can be with usage, yes, and the abbreviation can be different, like FUMP. It's easier to remember how to pronounce how it sounds, but if you use the abbreviation FUMP, here can be some kind of misunderstanding, because the order of your questions is different. So if it is an MPF, it means that first you focus on the meaning, then on pronunciation, then you focus on the form. If you use FUMP, it means you need to do it not in the order of letters. You need to do it in different order. So first of all, when you check students' understanding, the main focus, of course, is on the meaning. Then, if it's some kind of difficult word or difficult phrase, or there must be some specific intonation, of course, you need to drill pronunciation with your students. And form, the focus on the form. Here, if we talk about vocabulary, you can ask questions about parts of speech, if it is a noun, how to make plural form, or maybe if there is or there is no plural form for this noun. And if we are talking about functional language and focus on the form, here you may pay students' attention to grammar which is used, or gerund infinitive form, which is also part of the phrase of the functional language. And when you prepare these kinds of questions and you follow this procedure, make sure that meaning goes first. And also make sure that you do not overemphasize the form, because it's a little bit unnecessary for students, because the main focus will go to accuracy, but fluency will be not at the same level. And don't overestimate the importance of form in this way. And when you present, when you teach some piece of material, vocabulary, or especially grammar, using guided discovery, it will be really great to create 3 different tasks that each of them will focus on meaning, pronunciation, and form, because students will, for sure, they will know how to use it, when to use it, and how to use it correctly, how to pronounce it correctly. And as for now, I may say that's it with the theoretical part. So if you have some questions, you may ask. Okay, this silence is a little bit frightening. So if you don't mind, I will share my practical examples of how I used CCQs. I took examples from 3 different levels: elementary, intermediate, and pre-intermediate, both vocabulary and functional language. So here, as you can see, it's a vocabulary lesson from elementary level, and students' task was to work with personality adjectives, personality characteristics. So the book suggests that students read the sentences and they should divide highlighted adjectives into positive and negative. I did it in a different way. So students, first of all, they had gallery walk, and I already underlined with red and green color positive and negative adjectives, and students completed a little table, something that we have in the book. I know, I think I know, I'm not sure. And after that, of course, some of the words are known for students. That's why we can focus only on something difficult, such as stingy, arrogant, reliable, and so on. And in these sentences, there is already some context. So for students, it will be not so hard to catch the meaning, but still we need to clarify. So for example, if we have the word stingy, yes, he never helps anybody or gives money. So we can ask, will this person lend you money? Will this person help you in a difficult situation? Is this person similar to Scrooge McDuck from the cartoon? Because this is elementary level. And of course, your students will answer yes or no. So after we checked the meaning, we can drill pronunciation of some words, because they are mostly, in most cases, difficult for elementary students. And after that, you can focus on the form, and you can, for example, as I did. I have on the screen, on the whiteboard, I had only the first letters of these adjectives, and one by one students came to the board, they wrote the adjective till the end, and again I asked CCQs about the meaning. So if the word was selfish, for example, I asked, does this person think about himself or about other people, and so on. And of course, after that, they used them in freer practice. So they were talking about friends and so on. And functional language, also elementary level, it was making suggestions and it was listening activity. And there are not so many phrases and they can be put into 3 categories. So students didn't see the name of the category. They completed the gaps using the audio script. And when they completed the gaps, I asked them, in what kind of situation do we use such phrases? If we agree, if we disagree, if we react to someone's offer, to someone's suggestion, and so on. And here we also need to focus on the form, because what about noun, or I think we should, let's, and the verb in the first form, and to check that the form is clear to students, there is a good idea to have the task for error correction. It will be like the next activity was error correction. So of course I showed them the meaning of these groups. One more time we discussed in what situation we use these questions, and after that we did error correction. And again, vocabulary, this is pre-intermediate level. And this task is usually interesting for girls, and students in this situation, they say, okay, we can have a break and we can go out. But anyway, they do this task because we have also some pieces of clothes, not only for girls, but for men as well. And when you have pictures, of course, it's easy to work with pictures, like matching. But for example, flip-flops, yes, what question you can ask? Is it something you wear in summer or in winter? Sheath dress, is it something formal or casual? Or, for example, an Oxford shirt, is it for men, is it for women, and so on. And here the biggest problem for students was the pronunciation. Sheath dress and bandeau dress, I'm sure your students had their own interesting ways how to pronounce that. So when the vocabulary can be demonstrated with the help of pictures, of course, it's always easier to make CCQs and to check students' understanding, because all the time you can just demonstrate, you can point to this or that picture. And the functional language, also pre-intermediate level, how to complain and how to give recommendations. In the book, it has this table, how to complain, 2 parts, and students are supposed to complete them with words from the conversation. In my case, I did it in a little bit different way. I had these phrases on separate strips of paper. They already were completed, and students' task was to divide them in 2 groups. So we focused on the meaning in this case. They divided like phrases how to complain and phrases how to give recommendation. After that, there are not many phrases that need pronunciation clarification, so we focused on the form. And here it's important to pay attention to, like, first case, she is always talking about some extreme sport or other, like present continuous for irritating, annoying situation. So focus on the form. Or it would be a good idea, and so on, to focus that it's second conditional. So what kind of questions you can ask? If it's something from the first part of the table, I can't stand rock climbing. In most cases, students already know this phrase, I can't stand, but you can ask, do you like it? Or does the person like it? Does the person often do it? Or not right question. Is this the favorite activity for the person? And so on. It drives me crazy. Again, is it something pleasant for me? Is it something nice for me? And some questions, how to give recommendations. If I were you, I would take your dancing. So is it my advice to you? Because this kind of structure is unknown for pre-intermediate students. Or you can ask the question, will you always take your dancing, or only in some specific situation, and so on. And going out, it's intermediate level. Actually, now this class is optional, but with my students, we took this vocabulary because the vocabulary is great, interesting, and there are phrasal verbs, which is always a kind of problem for students. But anyway, they already understand that in most cases we have phrasal verbs because there are two words, one of them is preposition, so they already are more or less aware of the form. And here we mostly need to concentrate on the meaning. And in these examples, the meaning is not quite clear. So that's why here CCQs are really necessary, especially sentence number 3 and sentence number 4. Because we have dress up as and only dress up. And here we need to make sure that students see this difference. So dress up, does she wear casual clothes, or does she wear something special, something interesting? And dress up as, does she put on any costume, or does she wear such costume every day, or does she wear it to some party, and so on. And as for the pronunciation, there is one phrase which is unfortunately difficult for students. It's in the last sentence. They tend to pronounce it as wind. So here drilling is number 1 of importance. And the last one, it's also intermediate level, how to give advice, giving advice. Actually, if we look at these phrases, we understand that most of them, like 95% of these phrases, are already familiar to students. They know about modal verbs, should, must, shouldn't. They already know how about, if I were you. So our task here is just elicit information, not so much check, but just elicit, because this is something that they already know. And the new phrase for them, it's you'd better. And this phrase is kind of confusing for them because we have apostrophe D, and students tend to understand that this is had or would, and they always confuse it. And in this case, it's a good idea to have full sentence, like extra example with this phrase in full form. You had better pay for her. You had better not say something stupid, and so on. And again, your CCQ, like, is it advice? Is it strong? Is it not so strong? And so on. And probably that's it that I had to tell you. That's why I'm going to shut down my presentation and we will come back to our room. And I'm ready to listen to your questions if you have any.
Actually, no.
No questions. Thank you very much, Ola.
Okay, then probably the organizational question. Do you need this presentation? Like the first part with some theory?
Yeah, it would be nice.
I missed it. That's why I'd like to see it.
Okay, so probably you will get it like this common email from the teaching center in the nearest future. And I see that somebody's...
Yeah,
oh,
I have a
thank you
question.
very much. I see some questions in the group chat. Okay, so girls, please keep in mind that questions should be easy to answer. They should be easy in structure. First, they should focus on the meaning. Then they should focus on the pronunciation and on the form. So this is something that should be always on your mind when you prepare CCQs, especially I'm sure that you prepare most of your CCQs in advance. Okay. How to ask CCQs when teaching via Zoom? The same way as you do it in classroom, like open class, like we have now, people in one big room, and you can nominate students, and this student will answer your CCQ. Because anyway, you present something for the whole group. And the whole group is like we are now here. Just one question.
Yeah, everything is clear.
Okay, then I have a question. Is there anybody else from Dnipro except Galia?
Else except me?
Oh, I saw Katya. Oh, hello.
I am here also.
I am
Okay.
here too. Just Zoom logged me in via the account which I was just currently checking.
Okay, good. And no more questions. Okay, so thank you very much for support, especially from teachers from Dnipro, because for me it's close. And I want to show you something that I've been showing my students during the last 3 days at the end of each lesson. I have different posters, but this is my kind of motivation and my kind of reward to students. So the same for you. Can you see?
Yes.
Thank you.
I also have stickers because students like stickers and now they miss stickers. So I show them here. Okay, so probably we will finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have great lessons.
Thank you. Thank you.
And hope to see you.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.